Never heard that saying, the devil's in the details.
Hmm.
Well, today's deep dive, it's all about a role where those details, they can really make or break a building, literally. We're talking insulation supervisors.
Yeah.
And trust me, it's way more than just fluffy stuff between walls.
You got that right.
Yeah.
Most people, they probably picture, someone like knee-deep in fiberglass.
Right.
But it's a surprisingly complex job. Demands both technical expertise and some serious leadership skills.
It's funny you mentioned that because when I saw RoleCatcher, that job platform?
Yeah.
They had a whole section on insulation supervisors.
Mhm.
And I thought, really? What's there to say? But they go deep. Like, did you know that building and construction knowledge makes up about 62% of the skills needed?
Wow.
I figured it'd be way higher, honestly.
It's fascinating, isn't it? It shows that knowing the science behind insulation, like the difference between, say, fiberglass bats in an attic versus spray foam in a sound booth.
Right.
That's essential, but it's not the whole picture.
Okay, so then what the insulation supervisor doing all day, if it's not just about the materials themselves?
Well, imagine being dropped onto like a bustling construction site.
Okay.
You've got a crew of installers looking to you for guidance, maybe a tight deadline looming, and maybe even a last-minute design change that kind of throws a wrench in the plans.
Oh, yeah.
That's where the installation supervisor steps in, managing the chaos, making sure everything runs smoothly.
So like a conductor, but instead of sheet music, it's blueprints and building codes.
Precisely. They're responsible for, interpreting those blueprints.
Yeah.
Making sure the right insulation goes in the right place and that it's installed correctly to meet building codes and energy efficiency standards.
Right.
One wrong move could lead to, drafts, moisture problems, even structural issues down the line.
That's a lot of pressure. And RoleCatcher mentions this need for mechanical skills, which I wouldn't have thought about for insulation. Is this about, like, fixing the staplers when they jam?
More like operating specialized equipment.
Okay.
Think blowers for loose fill insulation,
Oh, right.
spray foam rigs, even thermal imaging cameras to identify leaks and gaps.
Wow.
You've got to be comfortable with these tools and able to troubleshoot if something goes wrong. Remember those quick decisions I mentioned?
Okay, yeah. That's starting to paint a clearer picture.
Yeah.
But it sounds like this role requires a ton of interaction with people, too.
Oh, absolutely.
RoleCatcher actually lists customer and personal services skills as a close second at 60%.
Wow.
Who knew being a people person was so important for an insulation supervisor?
It makes sense when you consider they're not just managing their own team,
Right.
They're the liaison between the installation crew, other contractors, maybe even the client.
Sure.
Being able to communicate clearly, address concerns, and resolve conflicts kind of diplomatically,
Yeah.
that's crucial, especially on a fast-paced construction site where misunderstandings can lead to costly mistakes.
Yeah, for sure. So it's like a real balancing act, right? You've got the technical know-how, the people skills, and then this constant pressure to, like, keep things moving on schedule within budget.
No wonder RoleCatcher emphasizes problem solving as like a key skill.
Absolutely. And they give a great example in their guide. Imagine you're working on a project, strict energy efficiency goals,
Okay.
but you discover a discrepancy in the building, plans a thermal bridge that wasn't accounted for.
Okay. For those of us who don't speak construction, what's a thermal bridge?
It's basically an area where insulation is compromised, like a gap around a window frame.
Right.
It can, create a pathway for heat to escape, make the whole building less energy efficient.
Ah, I see. So in that situation, what does an installation supervisor do? Like call up the architect and complain?
That's where those on-the-spot decisions come in.
Yeah. A good supervisor. They will identify the issue,
Right.
quickly assess the available options, and then come up with a solution that meets the project requirements without blowing the budget or delaying the timeline.
Right. They've got to have some serious, like, MacGyver skills up their sleeve.
Yeah.
So we've talked about, like, the day-to-day.
Right.
But let's say someone is, interested in this career path. What does that journey actually look like?
Well, RoleCatcher does a great job of, mapping out potential career trajectories.
Yeah.
And it's not a one-size-fits-all scenario.
Sure.
You could start as an insulation installer,
Okay.
gaining, hands-on experience, then work your way up to a supervisory role.
That makes sense. Learn the ropes from the ground up, literally.
Exactly. Or you might enter the field with a construction management background and step into a supervisory position more quickly.
So, like, different entry points depending on your experience. That's good to know.
Right. And regardless of your starting point, Continuous learning is key.
Right.
RoleCatcher stresses the importance of, staying updated on the latest installation technologies, building codes, sustainability practices.
It sounds like a career where you never stop learning.
It is,
What I find fascinating is that RoleCatcher doesn't just like tell you how to get the job.
right?
They really delve into how to like nail that interview.
Yeah.
I mean, they even provide SAML interview questions.
It's incredibly helpful, especially for those who, get nervous in interviews.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They offer practical tips on, how to showcase your skills and experience effectively.
Do you remember any of those sample questions? I'm curious what kind of things they ask.
Well, one that stood out was describe a time you had to deal with a difficult client or contractor and how you handled the situation.
Okay.
They're looking for evidence of your communication skills, problem-solving abilities, and professionalism under pressure.
Makes sense. You need to show them you can handle the heat, so to speak, without letting things like boil over.
Precisely. They also had questions about experience with different insulation materials and techniques, safety protocols,
Yeah.
even, your approach to training and mentoring a team.
So they're really digging deep into your knowledge and experience. It seems like having a portfolio of past projects like RoleCatcher suggests would be a smart move.
Definitely. It's a chance to visually demonstrate your accomplishments
Yeah.
and, set yourself apart from other candidates.
This is all like incredibly valuable information. And I have to say, I'm impressed by how much attention RoleCatcher pays to like the career advancement side of things. It's not just about, getting your foot in the door. It's about where you can go from there.
It really is. They've really thought about the long game. They've outlined potential career paths that go way beyond just being a supervisor.
Okay, so let's say you've put in the work, you've got the experience. Now you're looking to like climb that insulation ladder. What's the next rung up?
Well, according to RoleCatcher, a natural progression might be to a senior installation supervisor role. This is where you start taking on more responsibility for overseeing, multiple projects, managing larger teams, and even getting involved in the budgeting and bidding processes.
So less hands-on with the actual installation, more about like the big picture strategy.
Exactly. You're thinking ahead, anticipating challenges, and making sure the projects align with both the client's vision and the company's, bottom line.
It sounds like a role that requires like a really deep understanding of the entire construction process, not just, the installation aspect.
Absolutely. And that's where those additional skills that RoleCatcher mentioned.
Right.
Things like administration and management, even mathematics, for analyzing energy performance data and optimizing insulation strategies.
Right, because like a tiny miscalculation in insulation thickness could have like a ripple effect on a building's energy efficiency for years to come.
Precisely. And what's fascinating is that RoleCatcher highlights how this field is evolving with the growing emphasis on, green building and sustainability.
Yeah.
They suggest that insulation supervisors with expertise in these areas will be in very high demand.
That makes sense. As buildings become more energy efficient, the role of insulation becomes even more critical. It's like the unsung hero of sustainable construction.
I love that, the unsung hero. And, RoleCatcher even points out opportunities to specialize within the field.
Oh, wow.
You could become, say, a project manager, focusing solely on insulation projects. A senior engineer, maybe, developing innovative installation solutions, or even an installation consultant.
An insulation consultant. Now, that's a title that commands respect on a construction site.
Right.
What exactly would like a consultant do?
Think of them as the insulation whisperer. They bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to, complex projects, advising on everything from material selection and installation techniques to energy modeling and building code compliance.
So they're like the go-to experts,
Yeah,
brought in to solve the toughest insulation challenges.
exactly. And it's a testament to how much, specialized knowledge this field actually requires. It's not just about stuffing insulation into walls. It's about understanding, the science, the technology, and the art of creating energy efficient and sustainable buildings.
Well said. I have to say, this deep dive has been a real eye-opener. I had no idea there was so much depth and opportunity in the world of insulation.
It's a hidden gem of a career path. And thanks to resources like, RoleCatcher, more people are discovering the possibilities.
Absolutely. And for our listeners who are now curious about exploring this field further, remember that RoleCatcher offers all this information and more completely free of charge.
It's true.
They've really gone above and beyond to empower job seekers.
They really have. And on that note, I think we've successfully insulated our listeners with a wealth of knowledge about this fascinating and often overlooked career.
Well played. So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something for everyone to ponder. We've talked about the growing importance of, sustainability in construction. How do you think the increasing demand for green building practices will shape the future of the insulation industry and create new opportunities for, for skilled professionals?
It's a great question to consider, and one that highlights, the exciting evolution of this field.
Indeed. And with that, we'll leave our listeners to continue their own explorations into the world of insulation. Until next time, keep diving deep.